Hi, my name is Kay, and welcome to the New Teacher Cafe. Today, I want to talk about something that at times can make teachers feel a little bit overwhelmed, which is what to do with the students with different needs, specifically students with individualized education plans, IEPs. So, when you get your classroom, you're going to get all kinds of diverse learners. Now, a lot of districts have a full inclusion model where kids with disabilities or uh, not neurotypical have a space in the classroom. So, a lot of districts have a full inclusion model, which is all the kids are in the classroom regardless what their educational need is. I think is a great model, and I feel like I thrived and became a better teacher in a full inclusion model compared to some districts have students go to special ed classes or special day classes. They spend the whole day and in that classroom with students with like needs. Now, I can go on why I think that the full inclusion model is good for students and also for teachers. It really helped me in my practice to help all kids and diverse learners in my classroom. Okay, so I want to talk about students with IEPs. Now, an IEP, Individualized Educational Plan, is a legal document under IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Act. Now, that is the law that says they are to have access to education, FAPE, which is free and appropriate education. So they have the right to learn just like anybody else even if they have their disabilities. So I always look at it this way. Every child has something that they need in the classroom. So that's the first thing. That's what I look at when I have my students come in. So when you see kids coming in your classroom that have IEPs, just think of it as, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to grow. So here are the things that I do when I get a student with an IEP in my classroom. This is what I suggest that you consider doing in your classroom. So when you get your list, you find out which students have IEPs. The reason you should find that out is because, like I said, this is a legal document. So we as a school are to look at the school, the teacher, what we need to do to be in compliance with this document, with this IEP. So the first thing you need to do is to be familiar with the child's IEP. Okay. So maybe they have autism or maybe somewhere in between on the spectrum. So know what their IEP says, what the accommodations are supposed to look like in the classroom. The good news is there's usually a case manager on campus who is in charge of this student's IEP. The reason why I'm pushing you or encouraging you to know it is because a lot of times we don't have all the supports that we need in the classroom for all the kids. I'm going to be very frank about that. So from the beginning of my career, I would get kids on my list and maybe kids with IEPs. And usually the idea is that they're getting all the support and all their minutes met. Know this, minutes. How many minutes are they supposed to be getting of support in the classroom? Okay. So at the beginning, I was like, well, they're supposed to be getting this. So, you know, the people are going to come and take care of it. Well, sometimes they have a overloaded caseload. So maybe may not make it to your classroom. The reality is this is a legal matter. So they should be making it to your classroom. Nevertheless, you are to be prepared. Know the IEP, know what the child's goals are, what they're supposed to be accomplishing in your classroom. Know those things. Know what the accommodations are supposed to be. Are they supposed to be, the child supposed to be in the front of the classroom? Are they supposed to have fidget? Are they supposed to be taking breaks between assignments? You should know that. It is very important because at the end of the day, They may be an IEP meeting. They will be an IEP meeting, actually, not maybe. They will be an IEP, and you are to speak to some of the things that you are doing to meet the student's needs. So know the student's IEP. The good news is a lot of times, like for example, if the child is supposed to go to speech therapy or occupational therapy, these individuals, in my experience, go out of their way to come and engage with you to schedule these things. So a lot of times you'll always be abreast on some of the things that are needed to happen. Okay, a mistake I made at the beginning of my career was I thought, oh, well, I'm in charge of all the things. Am I supposed to be giving them the speech lesson? No, no, no. Somebody else is supposed to be doing that. However, know that that's what the expectation is. That's what's supposed to be happening. Your job, which is the second point I want to make, is to be prepared to be the child's teacher. Now, it can be really tricky when you're like, oh my gosh, this child is nonverbal. What am I supposed to be doing with this kid in my classroom? Or this child, has, I keep going back to autism because uh, I've had a lot of autistic kids in my classroom. And actually, I really enjoy supporting those students. And sometimes it's in other health impairments on their IEP, and you don't know specifically what that means, but they're supposed to be a student in your classroom, and they're supposed to be successful and feel successful in your classroom. They're supposed to learn, they're supposed to grow. So I always prepared myself to be the child's teacher. If nobody shows up, they're not to be sitting in a corner or somewhere you saying, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that child. So you are to know what to do with them. I'm going to give you a couple examples. I'm gonna start with my student A, Adam. I'll call him Adam. Uh, During the pandemic, I was his teacher. I was on Zoom. My student was reading at a kindergarten level, and we were in the third grade. So what I did was to ensure that they feel like they're part of the classroom was to have them, I worked with Adam's mom to get on those Zooms and be part of the community building activities when we checked in together as a classroom, and they shared out, other kids shared out. I also made sure that they had, when students came to collect materials, families did at the front of the school, that they had materials that they could access. Now, A or Adam was reading at a kindergarten level, so I had those first grade books ready for him, as well as kindergarten books and first grade books ready for him. And then when we came back to kind of the schools became like, we're kind of like, we came back in, but we're kind of like still wearing masks and social distancing in the classroom. He came to school. I was ready. He had a section in my classroom where I had magnets, and he had sorts that he could do where the other kids were, doing maybe writing paragraphs, but he had his word sorts. But I also wanted them to access the assignments. So what I did was with our animal reports was to help prepare the sentences, and also help the aide prepare the sentences. And he could just do the pictures. He was an incredible, he is actually, he's an incredible artist today. So he knew the information that we're writing about with our animal reports that were read to him. The information was read to him, and he just made the pictures and went over the information. So not only did he have activities that he can do at his independent level, but also he also had access to the assignment. So the students are supposed to have access to the assignment and not just doing only just random busy work. So you're trying to meet their needs as well as have the students access the assignment. I was a lot really fast. So these are your children. So it's not somebody else's child. Well, so and so, the case manager is going to come and work with them. Well, you sit here and wait. So having things accessible to them that they can do, modifying assignments, and seeing what that child is good at. is very important. So students with IEPs, these are your children. That is your child, just like everybody else. Okay. My third point, I'm always going 3 points because just like students, is like easier to remember, uh, is that you should have information on your child. Or what I mean is, be ready to talk about your kid. So whatever the modifications you're doing and all those little successes or the successes that they have in your classroom, be ready to talk about it. So what I mean is, show up at meetings with data. Show up at meetings with work samples. Be ready to talk about their strengths with their parents and colleagues and your principal. Be ready to talk about them. Like, my student Juan, he's very good at he's has great penmanship when he's writing, when he's copying his sentences. Look at these are the examples. So be ready to talk about this your students in the IEP meetings and what they're good at. Um, so also I want to talk about, I had a student called Juan. I'm going to call him Juan. And he was so quiet. He was so shy. So I always made sure that he had, friends next to him who were able to, he would whisper to them, and then the person would say it out loud to the class. And so you want your kids to feel successful in your classroom. You want them to feel that they're part of the classroom. You want to build empathy, and they should be feeling like part of, not separate from the classroom. Hopefully, I was able to help you in understanding what to do with students with IEPs in your classroom. Um, I always say my best students were students with, some of my best students with individualized education plans, because they're the ones who are sometimes like above and beyond the classroom. It's just that they access things differently. Uh, they access the curriculum differently, and you are to be ready to be their teacher at all times. I hope I was able to help someone. Shakanaka.